The Big E Sports Show.
Yeah, we got it going on,
The fastest hour in sports entertainment. We don't just talk about the headlines. We bring you some of the most engaging and colorful guests each and every episode for your listening pleasure. Now, without further ado, here's your host, Elissa Walker-Campbell.
Hey, welcome back to the Big E Sports Show. I'm your host, Elissa Walker-Campbell, and today we shine the spotlight on one of the most influential broadcasting duos in NFL history, John Madden and Pat Summerall, through the eyes of award-winning author Rich Podolsky. His new book, Madden and Summerall, How They Revolutionized NFL Broadcasting. It gives us an intimate behind-the-scenes look at how these two men changed the way America watches football. It is rich with storytelling, detail, and so many unforgettable memories. Rich, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Elissa. My pleasure. I wanted to remind your listeners that I worked with Madden and Summerall at CBS Sports in the 70s and 80s, and I knew them very, very well.
Well, we are looking forward to reliving so many of those memories. And in the book, I mean, you take us behind the scenes of one of the greatest broadcasting teams in sports history. Let's start off with what inspired you to revisit the partnership between Madden and Summerall, and what's the single biggest thing you wanted the fans to understand about just how special they really were together?
4 years ago, I wrote a book called You Are Looking Live, which was of the NFL Today crew that started in 1975. It's now 50 years in existence. It was the first of its kind in pregame shows, the first to have a woman, the first to have a black analyst, the first to talk about gambling. So many firsts. It got 13 Emmys its first year. It started a whole new trend in how to do pregame shows. Anyhow, after that book was successful, I started to think about my years working with John and Pat and how great they were. And it's been almost 25 years since they were last on the air. And nobody has come close to how great they were and how wonderful it was to listen to them. They were like, kind of like Abbott and Costello, the old comedy team. Summerall was the straight man and Madden was the storyteller and the comedian. There was never an analyst like Madden before or since that could tell stories and entertain the public like he did. And Summerall, who was a great analyst in his own right and then became a great play-by-play man, he made room for Madden. He could have done so much more in the broadcast if he wanted to. But he saw himself as a minimalist, and he just would get in, give Madden his space. And when Madden was off on a tangent, he would get him out by saying a funny line one way or the other. And Madden was able to let the play take place. Came to CBS in 1979. After 10 years of coaching, he had to quit coaching because of a bleeding ulcer. He didn't really want to be work in broadcasting. He saw broadcasters as what he called hairdos those days, and he hated Howard Cosell. And the great agent Barry Frank said, "We have an offer from CBS to do 4 or 5 games your first year. What do you think?" And he said, "I don't know, maybe in a few years, but I'm not that interested." And Barry Frank said, "In a few years, they may not want you." So he thought about that and said, "Okay, I'll try it. What do I have to lose?" And he tried it and he liked it, but he didn't really know how to be an analyst, and nobody at CBS was helping him. In fact, they put him with 4 different play-by-play guys his first year, 4 different producers and 4 different directors, and there was no way he could really get a feel for it. He sort of had to teach himself. And by the end of the first year, there were some executives that wanted to get rid of him. They didn't think he was very good. But he did something right before the Super Bowl after his first year in L.A. in January of 1980 that convinced the executives to bring him back for another year. He told entertaining, funny, ridiculously funny stories to a ballroom of 500 people, of executives and advertisers and media. And he had everyone in the palm of his hand. And they said, "We have to figure out how to use this guy better." In 1980, they put him only with Gary Bender. A new boss came in and they decided split up the team of Pat Summerall and Tom Brookshire, which had been the number one team. And the boss wanted Vince Scully to be Madden's partner. But the executive producer, Terry O'Neill, knew better, said if it was Scully and Madden, they would both talk so much that would exhaust the viewer. And he got the boss to agree to let them try it with Pat Summerall. And as John's son, Mike, said, it was like peanut butter and jelly meeting for the first time.
You were listening to the voice of Rich Podolsky. We are shining the spotlight on his brand new book, Madden and Summerall, How They Revolutionized NFL Broadcasting. And your book really does capture the chemistry and the rhythm of Madden and Summerall. You know, just as you had a chance through the years probably to talk to the producers, I mean, what made this partnership so unique, and why does their work? Why does it'll always stand as what the gold standard in NFL broadcasting?
You know, it was because of the great love and respect they had for each other, even though they weren't close friends out of the broadcast booth. Madden had this unique ability to capture the players' mannerisms, their slang, their essence, and he had a stunning ability to coach both teams simultaneously better than they were being coached on the field. And as Madden said in the funeral for Pat Summerall, he said there were voices before his and there'll be voices after his, but Pat's was the voice of the NFL. And it's true. Pat's great baritone. He was broadcasting games since 1962 for CBS, and everybody knew that voice. And when he came on the air at 1 o'clock, you knew it was going to be an important game. And together, they just were fantastic. Madden won 16 Emmy Awards, and he thought that Summerall deserved half of them. But in fact, he even gave one to Summerall when he was presented with it. But that's how much they respected each other. But like I said, they went their separate ways when the red light went off. Summerall liked to drink and go out for steak dinner with executives from the other teams. And Madden would like to go out for Mexican food with the young kids just out of college who were the broadcast associates assigned to work with them.
You know, we talk about Pat Summerall. You mentioned his minimalist play-by-play style. But also in the book, I mean, you do highlight and about his private battle with alcoholism. I mean, despite those challenges, I mean, how was he able to maintain an elite level of composure on air? What do you think fueled that level of professionalism?
Pat Summerall was a Renaissance man.
Okay.
He was as stoic and strong as you can get. And he started drinking in college when he was at Arkansas, and he somehow found a way to have his alcohol, vodka or whatever, and not show it. You know, they led them to have an intervention for him in 1993. He had been with Madden for 12 years at the time. It hadn't affected his broadcasts at all, but it was affecting his body. And his friends through Tom Brookshire set up an intervention that surprised him. He went to Betty Ford for 33 days, got cured, came back a few months later, and never had another drink again. And it saved him for 18 years. But he continued to stay away from the alcohol at that point, and that was very tough. There are lots of stories in the book. Some of them are very funny about his drinking and his times with his pal Mickey Mantle and things like that. And when he and Brookshire would get to an event on a Thursday, they start drinking margaritas, and they wouldn't stop until they got back to New York 5 days later. But as Pat's ex-wife said, you know, it was funny at the time, but it certainly wasn't funny what it did to Pat's body. And he eventually died from a brain disease that was caused by the alcohol, even though he had stopped drinking years before.
We are up against the clock, Madden and Summerall, how they revolutionized NFL broadcasting. Let's talk about some of the behind-the-scene challenges, because iconic partnerships aren't without conflict. So, you know, what internal frictions or pressures did you uncover that shaped their working relationship when we talk about John Madden and Pat Summerall?
They never had any problems other than near the end of Pat's career, he started to slip. First of all, he was 6 years older than Madden, and the drinking had caught up with him, and the brain disease had not been diagnosed yet. And in his last couple of years, he was making mistakes. Madden noticed it, and Hill and Gorin, executives of Fox Sports, noticed it, and they all discussed it, and they went to Pat in Texas, and they said, we would like your Super Bowl in January of 2002 with John to be your last broadcast. It'll mark 50 years in the business for you. And he kind of agreed to it, even though he wasn't happy about it. And they held a big press conference in L.A., and they had a lot of sports writers on the phone and in person, and they made big speeches about how great Pat was, how thrilled they were he was able to do this. And then when it was Pat's turn to get up and talk, he said, well, I changed my mind. I think I'm well enough. I want to continue broadcasting. And that really threw everyone for a loop. It put Fox in a funny position, but they went along with him. And eventually he did make his own announcement right before that Super Bowl in 2002. And he did say, I'm willing to give up my partnership with John Madden, which he did. Madden wound up going over to, I believe, NBC or ESPN. I forget which came first. And then Pat continued to work on games for Fox for a few years, but he had definitely gone downhill.
The architect of modern analysis, of course, is John Madden. And if he were calling games today in the era of analytics and social media, Rich, how do you think his style would translate?
I think John Madden would take social media and throw it out the window. You know, John Madden loved people. He went to a hotel. He would sit in the lobby till the minute he had to leave for the game. He liked to talk to everybody, found out where they were from, what their jobs were, how they did their jobs. That's why he wound up on the bus, getting Greyhound to build a specialized bus for him, custom made, so he could drive across the country to the games. And that was part of them revolutionizing the NFL, because Madden would get to the games before the regular schedule. He would go talk to the coaches and the star players, and they wound up getting CBS got the NFL's permission to do production meetings with the coaches and the players. That had never been done before. They taped them. They got the great stories and the strategy. And then on Saturday night before the game, Madden and the executive producer, Terry O'Neill, would do a teach-in for the crew and especially the cameramen, so they knew what plays were coming. This was never done before. And ever since then, all broadcasts are done this way in almost every major sport.
I'm curious, as far as what was the producer's philosophy, because when we think of Pat Summerall and John Madden, how they came across the camera, it was just so authentic. It was so real. Did they tape that first stand-up, or did they always go live? What did they like to do? What was their preference?
Sometimes it was just taped maybe 10 minutes before. Otherwise, they did go live. The first time Madden ever worked with Summerall was in his first year, 1975, Thanksgiving weekend. Brookshire had an event where his daughter was coming out in Philadelphia, so he couldn't be there. Madden still hadn't become the Madden we all grew to love, and they were high up on a platform in Tampa Stadium doing the pregame introduction, and Madden was sweating through his shirt, sweating bullets on his forehead, sweating through his jacket, and Summerall was thinking, this guy, he's new to TV. He's never going to make it. But it turned out Madden was claustrophobic.
Right.
That's what was causing it. And he wound up telling Pat during the commercial what was going on. Pat saved his backside after that and made sure he covered for him and let the producer and director know we got to get him off this ledge. And that's the kind of respect they had for each other.
Yes. My final question for you is, what do you hope the readers ultimately take from this book about the human side of two broadcasting giants?
The tremendous humanity these two guys had, not for the viewers and for the people they worked with. Of Pat Summerall, in 1981, Terry O'Neill had 9 broadcast associates, these young kids right out of college. And these kids were working with them. They were like gophers in the beginning. Go for coffee, go for sandwiches, etc.
Yeah.
But one of those guys is Richie Zients, who has now produced 8 Super Bowls for Fox. But back then, he said Summerall was one of the kindest men I ever worked with in my life. He said he wasn't just kind to John. he was kind to everyone. He was kind to the kids on the crew. And as one of those kids back in the 80s, Richie said, it felt like you were walking with giants. These guys just were so kind to everyone. And, Madden could be tough if you didn't know your stuff.
Sure.
You were trying to fake it. He really loved working with these guys. A quick story, they got to Washington, D.C. their second year, and there's a note at the hotel from Madden from Ethel Kennedy, the widow of RFK and the brother of JFK. And she said, John, in the note, we love you. We big fans. We want to have lunch or dinner with you this weekend. Let me know. And the young broadcast associate, Mike Arnold, who was CBS's top director now, looked up at John, and John was about a foot taller, and said, are you going to have dinner with Ethel Kennedy this weekend? And John looked down at him and said, nah, I'm going to have Mexican food with you guys.
Oh, I love it. A very special thank you to Rich Podolsky for joining us today, sharing the incredible insight on Madden and Summerall, how they revolutionized NFL broadcasting. You can go anywhere online and pick up a copy. What a gift to revisit these two giants who truly changed the way America experiences football. The holidays are here, and what a great stocking stuffer. Like I said, you can go anywhere online and pick up a copy. Thank you, Rich, for joining us, and we look forward to another conversation.
Appreciate it very much.
You bet.